Like I say, this is a free motor. It's a core, obviously. Not gonna lie, if it was a 4.8, I'd like to have the pistons out of it. Nice flat tops. I've never seen in this motor yet. Literally picked it up and threw it in the corner. Turda! Oh man. Believe it or not, it's not the worst one I've ever seen. Probably the worst one I've ever seen. The whole inside of the head here was literally full of gunk and oil that had never been changed. Literally had to like scoop it out with my hand just to even get down to the head bolt, just so I could even see anything in here.
I got the poo on me.
No, it's got 862 heads on it, so that's worth something at very least. I know the engine's not stuck or anything. I did turn it by hand when I picked it up, so. Oh, that one was a wee snug. Looks like they're all going to be that way. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. I haven't even cleaned up this mess from the last video I just made. We just finished replacing the transmission in my 5.3 swapped Jeep Cherokee. Put a new 5-speed transmission in that, posi kit out back, and all that fun stuff. Be sure to check that video out up above if you haven't seen it already. 2 parts to that one. And spoiler, we test out the posi in part 2. Here is our brand new Advanced Adapters AX15. Obviously 4-wheel drive, 5-speed, all that good stuff. That was going to be a little bit better prepared to handle the 5.3 that we're running here. Next we have our B&M short shifter kit for the AX15, and then the new posi kit for the diff. Not super great, a little rich. That one's got a different burn altogether on it. What is going on there? It's halfway plugged up. That's good. The rest of these look okay, but wait. What is that?
Ew.
What?
What's that?
What is going on there? I don't think I've ever seen a push rod look like that. Wow. Looks kind of milkshaky on the end of that push rod. Uh-oh. That don't look good. Let's push on. All that. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ew.
Gross.
Okay, so we got a little good, a little not so good, a little in between. You should drop your magnet too. It's really good for them. Definitely a 5.3. You can tell by the plus in the pistons. My other 5.3 in my my 5.3 swap Cherokee has these pistons also. I know them as the flex fuel heads, or pistons. Definitely some schmutz. Oh, there goes the gasket. Okay, yeah, this thing doesn't look so hot either. This one, oh, that's wonderful. That's yummy.
Yummy.
Yeah, you can see that just kind of. Lovely. I don't doubt it'll run, but not after a bunch of work. Now, typically, the one I've had issue with personally is this guy here on the end. The furthest back on the driver's side, the left side, that one's always broke. Oh, butter. Typically, I'll buy the kit, the exhaust bolt replacement kit as well. They're like dyed blue or something now. It's kind of weird, but I think they have a special coating on them supposed to help them from snapping off in the heads, which would be nice. But you can reuse these. I've done it before when I just haven't had that kind of money, because I don't always have that kind of money, kind of like right now. But I'll throw a little NICs on there, a little dab of the copper NICs, just coat the threads, and just snug them up like you would normally would, using the original bolts, and so far, I haven't had any issues. Perfect. Sorry, everything's probably flickering a little bit, I apologize. But actually, not awful. Not as much as I'd like to see. Yeah, a little scratching going on there. Yeah, there are some issues in there. Yeah, more staining there. I don't know what this thing was going through, but wasn't very happy about life. But hey, it's an LS, I don't care. I was hoping for a little better, but you know, free motor. Can't complain too much. Ew, that's gross.
That's bad.
All right, here we are. I actually just got the crank bolt out of the crank. A trick that I've come up with when you're poor, like me, or too stupid to own the right tool, also like me, what you can do is when you pull the crank bolt out, you can use it with some slight modification to pry the harmonic balancer off the crank. What I've done here is, you see I have lopped off the threads that keep it fastened in the crank, and then I've taken the head that was much larger and have grinded it.
I've heard it both ways.
It all down so that there is only this much surface area of the flange. When you put this back in the crank, it will allow the harmonic balancer to slide around this while also giving you enough surface area on the crank to give you leverage to pull against. Let me show you. Here we are looking at our crank and our harmonic balancer, and here's our new modified crank removal tool. So you can see where the shiny is all the way out there to there.
Shiny. Shiny.
That was the original head of this flange, but you'll see when we put this back in the crank, now this bolt will sit flush against the crank freely inside of the harmonic balancer here. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my 3-job puller, I'm going to put the leverage point on the head of that bolt and pry, and it'll come right off. Anyway, so like I was saying, you take your rental tool, 3-job puller that will actually fit in here. Come on, just... Oh! Why is it so hard? Nope, that ain't gonna do it. Oh no! Don't be an idiot like me and shim out your bolts with washers and nuts to make all of this work when you buy too long a bolt, because then pretty soon you're fighting this and you can't turn it. Good work, idiot.
Idiot!
I'll give you guys a little bit better idea as to the running condition of this motor. That right there, that's a lot of wear. Like, that bearing is done. You can see it just carries over to this side all the way around. 5 total? Yeah, there were 3 past those 2. Pretty sure those are safely assumed shot. Oh my God, do you see that? That was not staged, I promise you that. That's just coming off by hand. Oh my God.
Oh my God!
How about this one? Yep, loose, loose, loose. Those ones are tight. All right, enough fascination. Let's move on. I don't know if you're supposed to be able to push these out by hand, but that's what's happening right now. Yeah, that one probably wasn't doing a whole lot. Yikes. Hey, don't be dumb like me. Take a second look at what you're doing and realize there's more bolts than you realized. It pays to pay attention. Frickin' idiot.
Seriously, don't do dumb things.
There you have it. Pretty bare bones. Still got the mains in the block portion there, and I still got the cam bearings to knock out, but pretty well stripped down. And then,
No ending! No ending!
if you're curious about my organization for my project, you're going to be real impressed with this. Real high dollar, high tech organization stuff here. You can't just buy this stuff, guys. You can see by the way that it is, that says front. that says rear, and that each one of the pistons has a paint mark on it, so we know which one is which. Same thing with our main cap bolts, front and rear, and then same thing with our main caps themselves. Labeled the box front and rear, and then I made sure to clean off the markings there so I know which orientation they go and in what order. That's always important. And then I've got my incomplete house working for me now, holding the crank upright and try to keep that out of the way and hopefully keep that supported, I guess. What they say you're supposed to do, I don't know. I'm not an engine builder. Just some dude with a junk motor. Anyway, back to this. All right, so we're just about ready for everyone's favorite part, clean up and scraping gaskets. So I'm going to skip a lot of that for you, or time lapse it, make it go by real quick.
Super fast.
All right, as you can see, I've got the engine rotated in such a way that the easiest accessible oil hole or oil galley or whatever you want to call it is facing directly 6 o'clock all the way down. I double checked that with the front one here that I already knocked out to be sure I had the right size bearings, right at 6 o'clock. And then
No, and then.
if you can kind of see in there, I know it's tough to see, but all down the row, they're all, and so on and so forth.
And so on and so forth.
They're all at 6 o'clock. I'm going to use that as my orientation point so I can start pounding those bearings out and then go back and press the right bearings in place after that. And then as I do so, you can see I've got the air compressor hose here blowing it into number 2 just to verify that we are getting air pressure there. So obviously, you know, that's where that galley in the bearing, the hole in the bearing needs to go. So we got to keep all of our orientation correct, because if we don't do that, big no oil pressure, cam go boom, all that bad stuff. So
Boom. The end. Start again.
I'm going to start knocking all those bearings out with my cheap Amazon bearing tool and finish cleanup. There's number 2. Alright, seems like that tool worked out pretty good. This is the tool that I got. Easchwork, E-A-S-C-H-W-O-R-K. I think it's how that's said. I don't know.
He's embarrassed because he doesn't know how to read.
Cheap Chinese brand from Amazon. Not sponsored. I paid for that. Alright, you can kind of see what we're working with here. Greasy and grimy and stained and all that good stuff. So, I have some cheap sandpaper that I picked up. Some 400 and some 320. Probably going to start with the 400 and see where that gets us. Try to touch up all the cam bearing surfaces for now and go from there. I don't want to take too much material here because, fun fact, there is a first and second design for the cam bearings for these motors between 2002 and 2003. The engine in the Jeep is 2002. This block just so happens to be a 2003. Without knowing all of that, I bought parts for a 2002 first or second design cam bearing for the front and the back cam bearings only. And we're talking fractions of fractions. The first generation is like 2.33 to 2.35, and the second design is like a 2.5 to 2.6, if I remember correctly. It's fractions of fractions. So I really don't want to take a whole lot here. This actually looks pretty good. You can call that machined. That's all we did. Just enough to help clean it up a little bit. Looks pretty good. All right, for my next trick, I'm going to use some 320 sandpaper and this straight edge piece of pipe I had laying around, and we're just going to shoot across the head surface on both sides. See how well we do here. Now we're going to try to get the cylinders home. So I've never done this before, so bear with me. I'm going to use a little bit of PB Blaster to lube up the cylinders as we're doing it. No product sponsor, I paid for that one. We're just going to kind of wing it and see how we do. Alright, you can kind of see what it used to look like, something like that. Here's what we got now. You tell me. Got a decent crosshatch, I think, in there. I think I might try a little bit of oil instead. instead of the PB blaster. There is probably the best one. Problem I'm having is all these cylinders have some discoloration in them, and I really don't want to take these too far, but also find the balance so that I take it far enough that hopefully we get some compression out of this thing. That's probably the worst one. It's got the crosshatch through it, so it may be enough. Here's back to our first one we did. We have to make a second pass on these, so I guess we'll see what happens. Here's a quick overview of what we're working with here. Started with all the Mahle performance bearings, if I could help it. Rod bearings there. You can see what those kind of look like. I think they're tri-metal, I believe. Part number on those: Charlie Bravo -663 Hotel November. 8 of those. The performance main bearing kit, Mary Sierra -2199 Hotel. You can see all that tri-coating again. Just a set of standard cam bearings, Sierra Hotel 1814 Sierra. A shot of those. What's nice about these is it tells you which stampings on the bearings are which position in the engine. So like if I just grab the first one here, and it says on there, it says there Sierra Hotel 1814. So if we look at our diagram here, Sierra Hotel 1814 is both position 1 and position 5. So be sure if ever you're putting cam bearings in something that you hopefully have this little diagram, and then double check the box, be sure you have all the right stampings, that way you put them in the right way. Moving on, probably the crown jewel of the project, Texas Speed Chopacabra cam. Not sponsored, and this is the kit with the valve springs, the seals, all that good stuff there. And we also have a set of piston rings here, also by Mahle or whatever.
Potato, tomato, potato, tomato.
41859 Charlie Paul. I cheaped out a little bit on the pistons, I think. A set of LS48 pistons. They are the standard bore, obviously, but they're also the flat top. So I should bump up the compression around 10.5-ish to 1. There's all the specs on those. Then we have our Cleveite plastic gauge we're going to use to make sure we're at least in the ballpark. Bear in mind, none of this stuff is sponsored. I paid for everything here, working 2 jobs and waiting over a year to do it. Prove that this all can be done, even if you're a poor boy like me. Anyway, this isn't a review of any of these parts. This is just the route I chose to go. All right, there's number 5. The first one we've done. Pretty well centered there in the cam bearing journal. I don't know what you call that. The bore. Looks pretty good. I think we're just about ready to move on to number 4. Start working our way forward, I think is the best way to attack this. So you can kind of see there that right at the bottom of the screen is where the oil galley is, and right towards the top of the screen, that's where the number 3 bearing rotated after I started pounding it into place. So now I get to pound it back out the other side, straighten it out, and try it again. Freaking idiot.
You all take stupid pills this morning?
You can see our real high-tech, expensive setup here. Now that we're calling the block ready, I'm going to start cleaning up all the bearing surfaces of the crank. Find out really if they need any, we're going to call it polishing, but we'll see. Really see if there's anything that really needs any attention. Because, sometimes, really probably most of the times, she only needs what she needs. You know what I'm saying? And because this is a backyard rebuild or poor man rebuild, whatever, a lot of this is just going to be good enough. Really, I just want to be sure there's no burrs or nicks or really any other damage that needs addressed. I can't imagine there is, but if there is, try to get ahead of it before we throw it back in the block. I'm going to do the same thing with the bearing surfaces in the block as well. Yeah, we're going to try to clean that one up, maybe with some 400, just real light, just to try to get those scratches out of it. All right, here's the finished product. Just a little bit of 400, real light. Just enough to kind of clean up some of those scratches. I haven't cleaned up some of the balancers or some of the weights, just to kind of get the extra crap and crud off of there so it's not falling in the new engine. I'm gonna clean up all these surfaces where the main caps sit, and then in here too, where all the caps bolt in from the side. Clean all those up, make sure those are good to go. Yeah, once those are all cleaned up, we're probably gonna throw the plastic gauge in it and see how far off we are. So pretty well consistent. I think we're good to go. I'm going to final clean all this up and then throw the caps back on it. All right, before we start final assembly, I'm going to take our Mahle piston rings. I'm going to put it in the cylinder, use the piston to square it up, make sure we're perfectly perpendicular in the cylinder, and then check our gap here Make sure we have the same gap, or at least close. Top, center, and bottom of the cylinder. Make sure our cylinder is still in good shape. It's not actually tapered. So we're narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. So we'll see. Hopefully just like that you can see what we're talking about here. We have our piston ring here in our cylinder. And then right here where the two ends of the ring come together is that gap. So I took a couple of different gauges and I stuck them in there. This one is probably the closest. Goes in, has just a little bit of drag in and out. So I'm going to double check the internet, make sure we have a good measurement there.
Yay, internet, she said, sarcastically.
And continue on down the cylinder wall, see if we have that same measurement all the way down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to movie magic check all the cylinders, and we'll pick you up here in a minute. Alright, so I just got all the lifter bores cleaned out. Now I just stuffed a piece of Scotch-Brite down in there and did the trick back and forth to get the grime and grease all out of those. Then naturally, once I cleaned out all the lifter bores, the rest of the engine is now covered in crap. In there! We're going to move on to the final cleaning, all the surfaces and the bearings one more time, and then we'll move on to final assembly. Alright. Final clean for the bottom end is basically done. Everything is cleaned, wiped, blown out, all that good stuff. Apparently I nicked up...
Oh, wow. Wow, congratulations. You managed to string 3 words together in a sentence.
The third and second cam bearing. I don't know if it was me or the tool or whatever. Touched up with some 400, just real light, just enough to kind of get the scratch out. I could get it with my thumbnail. So those all look good now, and cleaned them again, so those should be ready. I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna start with the cam. That way I can help by lubing all the bearings first and help it along inside the block. And then I'll just put the cam retaining plate and the timing gear on it just to keep it in place so it doesn't fall out for now. Once the cam's in, then I'll go ahead and throw the crank back in it and start putting the caps on. And so for engine... It's
like he's trying to speak to me, I know it!
So for engine assembly lube, I picked up some of this Stay Lube engine lube with graphite. Not a paid promotion or anything, but I have talked to some older engine builders and they like this stuff. I got it fairly cheap at O'Reilly, so we're gonna give it a shot here. Alright, now that the cam's in, time to get the crankshaft out of timeout over here in the corner. And now that it's cleaned up, we'll throw it in the block. Alright, I know it's obvious to tell, but now we're in the my garage clean room. If it's not already obvious, I'm now in the clean room, the engine assembly room, and we're gonna get the crankshaft running. The frickin' speak English.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
All right, big moment here for everybody. Now that we're in the engine clean room of the garage, we're gonna get the crankshaft out of timeout. Now that it's cleaned up, and we're gonna throw it in the block. All right. So I know what you might be thinking. Texas Speed, chopacabra cam. How's that a budget, right? Well, when I was starting to price out this job, I obviously priced out a factory cam first because I thought the same thing. No way I could afford a cam, right? So, and everywhere I'm looking, they're like $500 or better at the time anyway. It was like a year ago I was pricing stuff out. So I thought, that seems a little high. So then I started looking at other cams. And sure enough, I can get a cam kit for nearly the same money or even better. So I figured, why go back with a factory cam? It's going to cost more money. Why not take the opportunity, possibly even spend less money, and get an upgrade while we're in here? So I did a bunch of research and came across Richard Hollander, his videos on YouTube. Basically takes junkyard LS motors and applies different mods to them on a dyno, so you can kind of see what mods affect the power band and the graph and stuff like that. So I watched a bunch of his videos and learned some information I needed to know from him. I don't know Richard or anything, I just appreciate his information. Go check him out if you haven't seen any of his stuff. This thrust plate I'm putting in, for anybody playing along at home, is a Felpro Kit Echo Sierra 73115. Came with the new bolts and the plate and the gasket, obviously. Why a 1/4 inch ratchet, you ask? That way you can't over tighten it. Or if you do, it'd be very difficult to to do so if you manage to. And then for now, all I'm going to do is just throw this used gear on here just to make sure the cam stays in the block where it belongs. Alright, now that all that stuff's done, I think I'm going to try to start removing pistons from rods here. I was going to wait for a buddy to be available for me to come use his press, but not sure I have that kind of time. And went ahead and found this at O'Reilly, this ball joint press. And I've got this jig kind of set up so that we should be able to hopefully press the press fit wrist pins out of the rods here. So we just have the snout of the threaded rod up against the wrist pin. We have I think it's a 15/16 half-inch drive socket sitting there between the edge of the piston and the other end of the C-clamp here. And I have an impact. So we're just gonna see if this will work. Here goes something. Oh, totally broke that piston. Whoopsie. Yeah, maybe not try that one at home, kids. Now we know. Probably wrecked that socket now too, so that's good.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
All right, update time. As you can see, haven't got our pistons in the new motor yet. New motor. We're still waiting on a buddy to be available so I can finish pressing the old pistons off the rod so I can put the new ones on. So that's kind of a hold up at the minute. Went ahead and got the engine pulled out of the Jeep again. I swear I do this every year. Anyway, I didn't film any of that. That is all part of the other Jeep video. If you guys haven't already seen it, check that video out. I'll go in depth as how that all goes together and all that stuff. So I skipped it for your sake.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so I'm going to start ripping this thing apart. I may even use the timing set because I don't have another $60 for a new Chloe's timing set. And then we're going to use these heads, 862 heads, on this motor because, like I said, the heads that came off that motor had a bunch of busted up studs. I don't have another $100 for drill bits and taps to fix all that in time to do that. So we're going to take these off and rework them because I know they're in good shape. Throw the new springs and lap the valves and all that stuff on these and throw those on the new engine. I'm going to strip this as far as I can, assemble this as far as I can, and just wait until the press is available. So for now, I'm going to have an adult beverage and get to work.
Andrew, I'd love a beer.
Look at how much metal is in that oil. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Nobody cares.
Look at all that. Yeah, this is why we're doing a rebuild. Because that's a lot of freaking metal. I could probably pick that up with a magnet.
That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad.
So we've got the heads pulled off here, and we're on the passenger side or the right side. You remember the other day in a video about a month ago where I said I think I was having an issue with the wrist pin on number 7 back here? As you just saw, we got the Skylark unloaded in the most redneck way possible without hurting anything. The old 5.3 Cherokee pulled it like a champ, which is surprising because I'm pretty sure the number 7 there in the back is lost the wrist pin, I believe. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're supposed to be able to rock this by hand. Granted, this is number 5, but still. Ooh, there, heard that one. Listen to it. Yep, found the issue. Okay, calling my shot here. 8-ball, corner pocket, number 7, like I thought. Did you hear it? I'm no mechanic, but I don't think they're supposed to move around like that and make noise. Anyway, you mechanics out there that are smarter than I am, what happened? Is there an issue with the wrist pin, or is it just the rings that are no longer existent in it? Anyway, I think we finally have this at a point that we got everything off of it. I know I said before I was going to try to reuse this chain, but she's pretty well clapped out. So not going to be running that, so I got to come up with another $50 or $60 for another chain kit. So I can't even start assembling the front of this like I wanted. If I had that chain kit, I could have thrown basically the whole front of the motor together. That would have been really helpful. But hey, I got the motor mounts moved over, so you know that's something. No, not really. Took 5 minutes. Anyway, I've got the heads off of this engine over here in the machine shop. We'll move it over in the light once we get all that crap cleaned up. These all look pretty good. Yeah, much better than the other heads, and all the exhaust bolts came out as I point at the intake runners. All of the exhaust bolts came out, so no issue there. I'd already replaced them. They had NICs on them, so those are all good to go. Had one casualty, broke one friggin' spark plug, so that was that figures. That's just me, I guess. So these will take just a little bit to clean up. Pop the springs off, lap the valves, put this all back together. Hopefully by the time we get all that done, we should have the pistons pressed and dressed and ready to go. And hopefully by the time all that's done, we'll have some money for a new timing set so we can start assembling the front of the motor. So, God, maybe sometime soon we'll get this finished up. We'll see.
Soon.
How soon? I'm not being pushy.
All right, welcome to the machine shop. We've got our heads here, our next victim. Got my cheapo valve spring compressor tool 27040 for anyone playing along at home. It's just a cheap little dinky tool I think I got from O'Reilly years ago and ended up keeping. And then we're gonna go back with our Texas Speed high lift springs, and then these will be good to go. All right, I'll show you how I do one of these. I won't bore you with the rest because this is a tedious process here. Basically, all this does, this portion here sits on top of the retaining plate for the valve, and then these will sneak in between the coils. As we tighten this bolt here, it will compress the spring. These little tabs here are brought up into this yoke, I guess we can call it here. So that's all we're gonna do is set this up just like that. Got my gun set on low. We're just gonna slowly tighten this up. Okay, just like that. You can see how the spring is now compressed, and you can see our keepers that are now in here and hanging out loose. I just come in here with a little pencil magnet and fish them out just like that. Once the keepers are out, we can slowly back off the tool. Just like that. All right, guys, we've seen this movie before. Gonna take a little bit of 400 and our straight edge. We're going to totally resurface the heads because we're in the machine shop, as you can tell. And yeah, these should be brand new. All right, there you have it. A little bit of movie magic, and look, we have some brand new 862 heads. Now that these are all done, before we do the final cleaning, we're gonna start assembling the motor. Throw the timing set in there because we're missing that, and then one final clean to the cylinders and everything again. Start throwing pistons in, and then finally we can finish the assembly with the new heads. Well, as you can see, I found a press to use. Had to ask 3 people and wait 2 weeks to do it, but here we are. There's 1, 6 more to go. I'm gonna throw our timing set in quick. I like to use just a little bit of blue Loctite on these just for grins. I don't think it's part of the instructions, but makes me feel a little bit better about it. So, you know, there's that. Take a little notch here, spin it all the way down, 6 o'clock. Get the new crank one on there, roll it over. That dot there you probably can't see. That dot there you probably can't see. They're lined up. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Cam and crank are in line. And then what I've done in the past is taken the old crank sprocket and I've used this to pound on the new one. I like to use the backside of the old sprocket on the face of the new sprocket, and that's because, I don't know if you can see it, because there's this lip right here, this step, and what that's going to do is keep this old sprocket from being hammered onto the teeth onto the pump drive on the new sprocket. So this little lip will help keep any damage out of there as much as possible. Just gonna oil it up a little bit here. Throw that on there, align with the key. Take our second one and set it on there beside it. And now realizing I did this backwards, because I got to pull this cam sprocket back on, throw the chain around it, and then throw everything back together. But that's why this isn't a how-to video. This is a, can this idiot make this run, never having done this before? So that didn't go well. Trying to get all those heated up and pressed in. The first 2, absolutely perfect, no problem. The other 6, had to go get pressed. Had to go back to my buddy with the shop and press all of those at least halfway centered on the shaft there. So those are all done now. We're going to be trying to install the new piston rings, and you can see I pulled the top ring and the second ring off of one of the old pistons. Verify which one is top, which one is second, and so on. Anyway, so we have our first victim here, number 1. We're going to be very carefully, very slowly getting our new piston rings pried on there because I don't have a tool for that. And we're going to make sure our pistons are nice and loose on our rods here. Get everything installed, make sure everything's lubed up good, and we'll throw them in the block. Let's see if we can't break some rings. we got number 2 as our first victim here. Already got the rings oriented. I got them in the cheapo Renta tool from O'Reilly. Got our Mahle performance bearings in there. Gonna get it dropped in, and we're gonna throw some plastic gauge in it. See how far off we are. Something like that. Grab me mallet.
That's it. I'm getting me mallet.
As you can see, we're not putting all the pistons in the engine just yet. That's because I had to go back and unpress these wrist pins from these pistons. The reason for that, if you look real close, as it goes in, firstly it's tight. As it goes further in, click, click, freaking tight. What we're running into on the last 4 pistons, as you can see, down in here on each side, and on the bottom, the hole isn't quite big enough. These are freaking tight. So, to try to combat that, I had to break down and buy another tool because nobody rents this. This is a wheel cylinder hone that's small enough to fit down in that bore. So I'm going to run this in there for a minute on both sides and see if we can hopefully, finally, get these wrist pins in. Alright, well that one chills out. I'm going to start working on these other 3 problem children. I'm going to get those knocked out quick. Well, quick for you. I'm going to spend another probably couple hours on that. And then hopefully get them slammed in the block tonight. I really like the custom water feature my contractor installed when he was still working on my house. It really adds to the ambiance. What a relaxing atmosphere when I'm trying to build a frickin' engine. God, I love it. It's so great.
That's it. I've had it with this dump.
All right, update time. Still raining, still wet everywhere. Got all the pistons knocked in. Rods are torqued. Started putting lifters in it. I'm gonna do one final clean of the head surface here. I'm gonna start throwing heads on. Okay, finally putting the covers and everything on. For those of you who don't know, apparently oil pan alignment, critical, right? We don't care about the manual. Anyway, so in my experience with ripping these down, is that if you don't get the back of the pan and the block, like these 2 right here, if you don't get those absolutely flush, the rear main will leak, or the oil pan will leak. Very, very common. It's all over the internet. Go see for yourself. But because we're on the stand here, I can't really get the rear main cover, seal and plate, whatever, installed just yet. So we're working up front on the timing cover. All right, how's this for budget for you? So this is the harmonic balancer that came off of this engine that we just rebuilt. And obviously it's been sitting around and hasn't really been taken care of. So we're going to take it to the machine shop and we're just going to clean it up and throw it on there. Ow! Ow!
Oh, God, that hurt a little, but I'm all right.
All right, here we are on location in my kitchen. And what we're doing, this is a little like 1 gallon weed sprayer, little pump action deal. And what I'm going to do with it is, once I get it cleaned up, we're going to fill the tank here full of oil and use the pump here to pressurize it into the oil pump fitting on the outside of the block. That way, when we go to start the engine, we will be already primed. So hopefully no starvation takes place.
My bubbles.
Getting closer. Got her up in the air now. That way, up at nearly eye level, so I can get this all cleaned up. There's our little chopacabra guy hanging out there on the back of the cam. He's gonna go round and round and round quite a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna get all that cleaned up, get the new remain seal cover on there. And fun fact for you, we got our wicks on there, no product sponsor, but a 51522 will fit the earlier LS motors, and it gives you a little more oil capacity. Normally they're like half that size, like a PF63 or something like that. This is nearly double the capacity, a little bit taller. Anyway, I kind of like it, so there's that for you if you care. So what we have here is utter ridiculousness. We have a washed out sprayer that you may or may not have seen. I scribbed it in the kitchen in the house here. I'm sure the wife really appreciated that. So that's all clean. I got about a quart hanging out inside it. Got the nozzle pulled off the hose here, clamped to another hose, to an adapter.
I'll put that flea in a box, and then I'll put that box inside of another box, and then I'll nail that box to myself.
Or a couple of adapters I got off Amazon into the oil pump there. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to apply pressure with the pump here, and then hopefully we can build pressure and release it into the oil pump, and then we'll rotate the engine. Hopefully, if that conglomeration works, we'll put more oil in it, and we'll keep filling the crankcase until hopefully we have oil coming all the way out across the top. Oh my god, it's actually working.
Mr. Hammond, the phones are working.
Alright, check this out now. So I got a wire underneath that ground bolt. Right onto the battery cable, negative obviously. I even got a piece of wire jammed into the oil pressure sensor. All the way to the connector, the oil pressure switch, and got the battery plugged in. So I've come around here and look at the gauges. It is registering a little bit of, stop it. It is registering a little bit of oil pressure. So that's kind of neat. So I made an adjustment to our oil pressure priming stand, or engine priming stand. So the engine's at a little more level now. It's tilted back just a little bit, which is probably more accurate. But at least this way, I threw the dipstick in there. At least this way I can kind of tell where the oil's at. I think we got oil everywhere. Pretty sure. Not too bad. Let's check this guy. Mostly up the safe zone. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's there. So it's full of oil, and I think I saw up to like 15 or so pounds of pressure on the gauge we had hot wired just a second ago. So not too bad. I need to rent a tool to remove the pilot bushing out of the back of the old engine. Slam it in there. Throw the clutch back on it. And I think this side is ready. We're just about ready to go back in the Jeep here. Might do a couple other things while I have this thing apart and have some space. Like I might rip apart the gearbox because it's sloppy and puking its friggin' guts out. That's getting real expensive to drive. And then this is kind of the awkwardness that is the battery. You can see it really doesn't fit that well in there because, you know, here's where it sits and then here's nothing. It's flying on that side. So it's kind of cramped and kind of awkward in there. So I'm thinking I may end up taking some of my wheel well here and whack it off. That way I can set this in here perpendicular. So it actually kind of friggin' fits because this isn't working the way it's at. And you got the heater hose or the radiator hose that comes up and over like this over this corner. Makes it real awkward to get this in and out when everything's assembled. So we may do that. Maybe whacking this corner out to make room for that battery. And I got to looking around for a template, and sure enough, my non-sponsored adult beverage box is just about the right size and shape. It's a little bit wide. We're gonna trim it up a little bit. But ideally, that's what we're gonna whack out of there. And we're gonna make it flat. Because right now it's domed to make room for the wheel well. Come across flat and then come back down flat, make it a corner. If there was enough metal there, or if I didn't need so much space, I just beat it in with a hammer.
I'll smash it with a hammer!
But that's not going to work here. So we're going to cut it and have to fill it with something else. So here's our hole, right? All I did was come in here and I took a cut out of the fender liner just for what I needed. You can see how it's raised to get around the hump for the end of the wheel well. I just trimmed that out. Now we can take this angle that's bent up and bend it down so we can get it flat. And then we'll take this lip here and come down to meet down here where it's flat. I know the way I'm describing it doesn't make sense, but you'll see. Watch this. There, can you start to see it? Man, that's gonna fit good. Fits in like it should, right? So, just like that, we have our template, thanks to our non-sponsored Voodoo Ranger box. So, you can see, got a traced out rough shape, what it's supposed to look like. I even, made sure to acknowledge what side was up, so you can't screw that up. And facing in. So there's that. Anyway, I like to use these because they're thin enough, they're easy to cut, and they're sturdy enough you can, you can do stuff like this out of, and they're not going to fall apart. Anyway, just a good reason to hang on to your wobble pop boxes and your cold snap cases. So I'm going to do the same thing on this face here, and there's probably going to be one more shape in there somewhere, so I'm going to keep working on that. Alright, and after spending just about literally all freaking day.
I was here a grand total of 3 days, alright.
On that corner. 2 pieces, cut, trimmed, fitted, tacked, and then freaking just welded. Because you know what they say, if you can't weld good, weld a lot. And I sure did that.
They're crap. Crap. Mega crap.
Even tried to get some on the backside here, and it is probably the ugliest thing ever. Just as ugly as sin.
What a truly revolting sight.
But it sure as heck is not falling out anytime soon. We'll let it cool off, clean it up, see how the battery fits. So here I am, mixing up JB Weld with the busted piston ring from the old engine, because it was, it was laying on the floor. Because I don't have anything else to really mix it up with, and I'm not worried about sacrificing. And I'll show you why I'm mixing up some JB Weld here in just a second. Here's our, air quotes, finished product. And you can tell as I started to grind it down, there's some holes in it. And, as a welder, I know that that's not good. No, seriously. I suck at welding. I don't know if this was so much the Amazon welder, if it was me, or the really thin metal I was working with.
You suck at this.
Anyway, I'm going to take a little bit of JB Weld we mixed up. I'm going to throw it in these holes, let it set up. Then...
Today, Junior!
Then when it cures, I'm going to coat it all in the rust reformer, and we're going to call this done. Here's our steering gearbox. As you can see, I've already gutted the thing. There's all its guts.
Why are you going to the airport? Flying somewhere?
This thing was puking its guts out, like uncontrollably. Anyway, this guy here is what was leaking, and you can see there's like 19 O-rings that keep it sealed, so go figure. Anyway, so I'm watching one of Bleep and Jeep's videos, helping me go through this thing here. Matt over there. I don't know Matt or any of the guys at Bleep and Jeep, but they have a lot of good information, interesting videos over there. Go check those guys out. But because my phone is also my camera, I can't both watch their video and record at the same time.
Be careful with that phone, Lieutenant. In time, you could develop a tumor.
Finished getting that cleaned out. Hopefully replace all the seals and stuff with the seal kit. For anybody playing along for fun, that is the kit that I got. Edelman. Either 8522 or 2640. Pick your poison.
Take your pick. I got more.
Anyway, it's got bearings and seals and gaskets and all sorts of crap in there. So hopefully that'll get this patched up. Battery tray done. Harness done. Steering gearbox rebuilt. So we should all be ready to go. Now we're putting this thing in. Okay, some time has passed and the time has come. I've already turned it over with the starter. Not run it, just run it with the starter just to build some oil pressure before we did try to fire on this thing. I already topped off the power steering fluid, and it is hopefully filling the box. It keeps disappearing, so hopefully that's where it's going. Obviously, we haven't put any of the radiator fans or anything in. That is because if something does decide to catastrophically fail, that saves me about an hour of work from having to re-pull this thing apart and do it again, which I don't have money or time for. So, anyway, if you can see my breath, it's officially cold here in Idaho, and this is going to be this thing's first truly cold start. And it's going to start because I have faith. And I've even got myself a little victory drink here. I've been hanging on to this for months. So this is going to be my victory drink tonight when, hopefully, when this thing runs. So summing up, chopacabra Texas speed cam, 4.8 flat top piston, should be about 10.5 to 1 or so compression. I've got a few gallons of 91 or 93 in the tank. Running on the factory computer with an altered tune to run it the way it was before. We're gonna see how well the computer figures this out. And again, bear in mind, I've never rebuilt an engine before. This is number one. So we got no experience on top of mods, on top of God knows if any of this is gonna work. So let's hit it. All right, here we go. Mutual check. Push check. Okay, brake is on. Neutral engaged. All right. Contact.
Hold on to your butts.
Pressure, charging, got a tack. Woo!
Damn, I'm good! Can you feel that?
I'd imagine. I'm scared. I don't want to wrap her up too much. All right, guys, you saw the footage. It freaking ran. It had great oil pressure. The computer has no idea how to run the thing, but that's what we expected. No experience, all the mods, no tune on the computer, and just a little bit of internet research and some free time. It's not puking any fluids out. It's not making any weird noises like mechanical failures. That means if I can do it, literally anybody else can. So cheers to all the hard work, everybody. Thanks for tagging along with me so far. To a job well done and a long time coming. But what's that, you ask? Burnouts? Absolutely, if we're going for burnouts. We gotta see what this baby can do now. But I gotta put about 500 miles on it or so, get it broken nice so I know it's ready, we're not gonna hurt anything. It'll be about a week's time for me, it'll only be a few seconds for you. Ready? Go.